Chapter 7. Their timing was perfect. Weatherby had no sooner been introduced to Milt and Gus than a loud clumping of skates on the ramp from the locker room to the ice, accompanied by a thundering rendition of the cheer, announced the boys' arrival. The ramp had concrete walls and ceiling. The floor was covered with a special hard black rubber sheeting designed to protect skate blades. The boys had discovered that the cheer echoed within these narrow confines, and their young voices sounded like the roar of an army. It was their favorite spot to chant, and they gave it all they had as they rumbled up the ramp and burst onto the ice like a sudden thunderstorm. The boys began the practice session as they always did, skating around the ice, first clockwise and then the other way to limber up. At the whistle, they headed for the bench. If Milt and Gus were pleased but cautious welcoming the new coach, the boys were flabbergasted. Weatherby was ancient. Worse, Weatherby was a woman. They weren't hostile, just dumbfounded. After Coach Gorman divided them into 2 squads and sent them out to play for 10 minutes, their opinion altered slightly with Weatherby's send-off. "Let's see you kick ass," she hollered out with the volume and intensity of a barnyard auctioneer. "Some old broad," one team member observed loud enough for the others to hear, and with enough genuine awe that a tone of conditional acceptance was set among the boys. "We have trouble dividing the players up evenly," Coach Gorman told Weatherby as the boys lined up for the first face-off. "Jade Booth is not only the best player we have, but he's the only one who can skate, stick handle, and shoot straight. Whichever side has Jade automatically wins." "He must be number 22, said Weatherby as she moved a couple of rows higher in the stands for a sharper view of the game. "It's easy to see how much better he skates." Coach Gorman's prediction was correct. Jade's squad won 4-0. All 4 goals were scored by Jade. "Well, what do you think?" Coach Gorman asked Weatherby as the boys headed to the lockers after practice. "Wrong boy wound up in the hospital," was Weatherby's blunt assessment. "We're going to have to get Jade off the ice for a while if we're ever going to win games." Gorman and Nanton reacted with shocked silence. Alan was stunned, but for a totally different reason. He had never made the connection between Jade and himself, but with Weatherby's words, he suddenly understood that Jade was doing on the ice what he had done at the office. Weatherby had come in from the outside and recognized a major problem, as had George Burton, the president of his former company. "But he's the best we have," protested Coach Gorman. "He's good. We'd be sunk without him," said Coach Nanton. "He's a puck hog, though," said Alan Foster, "and I'm willing to bet Weatherby is going to tell us that we can't win games in a team sport if one player totally outshines the others." "Not quite, Alan," said Weatherby. "You can have a player who is much better than the others. You can have a star. What you can't have is a star whose main goal is to look good himself rather than make the team look good. You called it being a puck hog. In basketball, we used to say they were glued to the ball. Once they got their hands on it, the only focus they had was putting the ball in the basket all by themselves." "Jade scores most of the goals," Coach Gorman pointed out firmly. "Without him, we'd be in big trouble." "You're in big trouble now," Weatherby said gently. "How much worse can it get than to be at the bottom of the league 6 years in a row?" The question silenced all further objections. Weatherby was right. It couldn't be any worse. "We might be able to work with Jade and turn him into a team player," said Weatherby. "But as long as he's out there, the other boys will defer to him. They'll never demand that he stick to the play plan, knowing he's more likely to score on his own than they will if he passes to them. And even if he did try to include them, they'd screw up. Then he'd get frustrated and go right back to playing the way he's playing now." Alan again recognized the parallels between himself and Jade. Weatherby was doing a good job of describing exactly how he had handled himself before George Burton put him out the door. "Seems to me we have trouble either way," said Coach Nanton. "We're losers with Jade playing puck hog, and we're losers if he tries to be a playmaker because he'll go back to being a puck hog. We're sunk." Weatherby replied, "No, we're not. You're assuming that because the boys mess up now, they'll always mess up. Get Jade out, and these boys will have a chance to really work on their skills. Right now you can drill them on skills, but they know it isn't for real. Come game day, Jade will take over, and they'll never have a chance to try in a game what they learn in practice. They won't even do it when Jade isn't on the ice. They'll just be killing time until you put Jade back in." Coach Gorman looked over at Gus Nanton, and they gave each other a weak smile. Not long before, they'd talked about exactly this point. When Jade was on the ice, they could count on him to at least move the puck down to the opponent's end from time to time. Naturally, the boys tried to get the puck to Jade, and then they coasted. Gorman and Nanton had further noted that when Jade was off the ice, the boys also coasted. Unlike Weatherby, their solution hadn't been to get Jade off the ice. Rather, they'd wondered how they might get him more time on the ice. You don't have to be permanently rid of Jade. You just need to send him away long enough to give the other boys a chance. Then when he comes back, with luck they'll have gained some confidence, and he'll be able to fit into the new way of doing things, said Weatherby. So how do we do that? Asked Milt Gorman. I haven't a clue, said Weatherby almost gleefully. I'm in consulting here, not management. I used to get the school to put my basketball prima donnas into the school play or something, and then I'd show my support for the arts by giving them a 4 to 6 week leave of absence from the team so they could be discovered by Hollywood. No one was ever discovered, but I sure put some teams together while they were gone. What you'll do, though, I have no idea. All right, said Milt Gorman cautiously. Let us think about that. Is there anything else? Driving over here, I told Alan that all great teams shared 4 characteristics. The first is a sense of purpose, with shared values and clear goals formalized through a covenant or team charter. You have your purpose, winning the cup for Tim. The chant does a great job of formalizing the commitment. Your sessions on hockey traditions and fair play are the values there to live by. I think you're in pretty good shape. If you can sideline Jade for a while, we can set goals for each player. Purpose, values, and goals, that covers the first significant trait of successful teams. Weatherby fell silent, and after a minute Gus Nanton prompted her. So where do we go from here? Skills, said Weatherby. That's the second key characteristic, the development of high skills. You have to teach skills and you have to unleash them. No sense in having great skills if you don't encourage the players to really go for it. To play high-five hockey, they'll have to use every skill they have, and then you coaches have to push for a maximum effort. Skilled players with timid, cautious coaches won't create a high-five team. Skills are the foundation, though. A team can't perform if it doesn't know what it's doing. You have to start with individual skills. People need the basics, but that isn't enough. Everyone has to be committed to constant improvement, getting better and better at the basics every month, every week, every day. That means you have to be able to measure and compare in some way. It was easy in basketball to measure successful foul shots, but other skills weren't so easy to measure. For those, I'd make a judgment call and assign a rating. Sometimes I'd give a player a score, a number. Sometimes I'd just tell them how they were doing. The important thing is team leaders need to measure improvement and give feedback. The coaches listened to Weatherby with respect. She spoke with a firmness and clarity that left no doubt she knew exactly what she was talking about. Then what do we do? Milt Gorman asked. Let's get underway with skills, said Weatherby. Don't look so worried. I've lasted 85 years so far. I promise I won't die before the end of the hockey season. I'll tell you what to do next when we get to next. No sense complicating things. First you have to send Jade into limbo. Then we'll work on skills. As for you, Weatherby said, thrusting her cane tip toward Alan. It's time I was getting home. If I stay up too late, this Cinderella turns into a pumpkin. Milt said to Alan, you look after Weatherby. I'll take David and drop him at your house. Then turning to Weatherby, he said, it's been great to meet you and have you here. I'm looking forward to next time. As Alan drove Weatherby home, he wondered what they might do about Jade. The minute the car started to move, Weatherby fell asleep, so he had lots of time to think. Bumping Jade had him worried. He knew how he'd reacted to being bumped, and he wanted no part of doing anything similar to Jade. Alan needn't have worried. While he was driving Weatherby home, Jade's dad was meeting with Milt and Gus outside the locker room. Grounded, no sports, no movies, no television, Mr. Booth announced to the 2 startled coaches. Seeing the shocked expressions, he added, I'm sorry. I know Jade's important to the team, but his schoolwork comes first. I warned him that if his report card wasn't better this time, he'd be grounded and spend his time studying, not playing. If he improves after the midterm exams, he can come back to hockey. I hope you're not too upset. Gus Nanton was the first to recover from the shock. Of course we'll miss him. Jade's a great player. I hope he'll be back soon, Milt Gorman added. I'm sure he will be, said Mr. Booth. Jade's a good boy. He just has trouble focusing on his studies sometimes. I'm sure this will be a good wake-up call. The boys were starting to come out of the locker room as Mr. Booth was leaving to fetch his son, saying, Thanks for being so understanding. No problem, said Milt with a straight face. Schoolwork has to be number one. Milt's straight face broke into a broad grin the second Jade's dad rounded the corner. Wow, whispered Gus, his own face beaming with delight. Fantastic, Milt whispered back, and two hands instinctively shot into the air and smacked with pleasure in a high-five salute. All right, they both called out enthusiastically but in very soft voices. Jade's dad paused at the locker room door. Around the comer, he could hear the two coaches whispering, no doubt trying to comfort each other over the loss of their star player. One was so upset that Jade's dad could hear him smack the wall in frustration. It couldn't be helped, though, he said to himself as he opened the door. Jade's schoolwork had to come first.